Welcome, everyone, to another episode here. This week, we have a great, inspiring topic that is really something that really comes up a lot for both Shylo and I in many of our sessions, many of our one-on-one work. This is a question that comes up so often. So many of you are really curious about this topic, and it is around connecting with your guides, connecting with your unseen team. How do you hear them? How do you know they're there? How do you know they're the good guys? All these questions are really important to really have the clarity. And so we're going to dive right into this topic and really give you the tools that you really need in order to really know how to do this safely and to really have those any kind of questions that may be kind of lingering for you, really have those answered so that you can do this with confidence and start to build that relationship. So we've got a juicy episode for you, and we're really just naming some of the most questions that come up the most for us, and starting with the first one of how do we connect with our guides, our spirit guides, our unseen team. And really the biggest key here is it's really important to know how you receive, to know how you intuit, because that's really the unlocking, because it's the we're all unique in the ways that we receive information and the ways that we connect to our guides. And so knowing how you dance with this flow of information is really pivotal to this storyline here. And so Shylo, I don't know if you want to dive into all the different ways that this can look for people.
Yeah, thank you, Ava. That's such an important part of the foundation of really tuning in and connecting and building a solid relationship with your guides. Because so often I hear, well, I'm not seeing anything. And so people feel like if you're not a seer, which is actually such a small percentage of the population, right? That's clairvoyant. So that's just one way to receive is actually getting visuals. And I feel like anytime I tell someone that or let them know, it's almost like this pressure goes off. They're like, oh, I don't actually have to see anything. I can receive in other ways. And then when I bring up these different ways of receiving, it's almost every time, I'm going to say like a 99% um, percentage, they go, oh, I receive in that way. Right. And so it's giving you permission and bringing the awareness to understanding how you receive. And so as I go through these, I really want you to take your time and tune into the ways that you know that you have received before. Right. So the first one, clairvoyance. This is the seer, right? Just as I was just speaking of. And so you may be a seer, you may not be a seer. And if you're not, right, we're not attaching to these any of these. We're just bringing loving awareness to in which ways you receive. But the clairvoyance, a seer can be in many different ways. And maybe you see sometimes, but that's not actually your main clair, right? We have one main way that we're receiving the information. And then what you'll notice is that the other clairs kind of illuminate and light up and dance with each other. And so you may actually have where it's almost like a movie screen opens up in front of you. I've had that before. And that could be like just such a crisp visual where it's just like a movie opens up. It could be where you're actually getting pulled into a higher dimensional field. And what you're seeing is you're actually in another paradigm, right? Connecting with our higher self can feel like that sometimes. And so that's also in a way that we can see. Or it can just be these tiny glimpses, right? These little glimpses that want to come through. And so there's even different ways that we can receive in just one specific clair. The next clair is claircognizance. So this is your inner knower, right? And this is a very common one for people to not only common, but also hard for people to accept, because it's one of those things that it's, well, how do I know that I'm not making that up? How do I know that that's just not my mind or my ego? And we're going to go through some of the distinctions in that as well. But the inner knower will feel expansive, right? It'll feel light. It's going to feel like this loving. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't still maybe feel a little uncomfortable, or there can be a layer of fear in it, because if that inner knowing message that comes through is calling you into more or calling you into an expansive version of you, that's maybe going to feel a little discomfort. And so you're tuning into, okay, is this coming out of fear to close me down, right? Where the ego can have the belief systems to kind of, kind of keep you in just the old ways of being, right? And these messages from the inner knowing, it's going to be just this like instantaneous, this message landing, right? This gut feeling. It's really tapping and tuning into the intuition, the inner knower. And I'm assuming a lot of you that are listening to this actually have your claircognizance turned on. And so tuning into that. The next one is clairsentience. That's feeling, right? And so you may feel, and this is in a couple of different ways, right? It's feeling, you can feel emotion coming on, right? You can actually start to feel in that way, or physical sensation in the body, right? Actual tingling, light sensation, right? This is a big one that opened up for me very early on. And for me, when this opened up, it was one of the first ones that opened. And I was frustrated with this because I was like, okay, I know that you're here. I can feel a hand on my left shoulder, or I can feel tingling. I can feel my crown. I know that one of my spirit guides is here giving me an activation. Yet, what does it all mean, right? Because I didn't have my clear cognizance turned on yet. And so I knew I was getting downloads. I knew I was connecting with them, but I had no idea. I wasn't able to translate any of it. And so just know that there's also a process to this, right? It's opening yourself up, not getting too stuck on the all of the details of it. Just noticing what's coming alive for you now. If you're not able to translate it yet, that's okay, because it's right, we're building an energetic muscle here. And so then there's clear audience, right? Actually hearing, having your hearing ability turn online. And this could be one that maybe is a little startling at times, right? I know I've been laying in bed and I've heard my guides speak my name out loud, and it just like startles me to my core. And but yet I know that it's them. I can feel the loving frequency behind it, right? And so that can be, also frequency coming through, ringing in the ears. As I was actually just talking to my mom earlier, had to explain to her, she had ringing in her ears. I had to explain to her, I said, it's most likely one of your guides that's trying to communicate to you. And so take time, pause, listen, right? When that's happening, what's going on in your life in that moment? Maybe where were your thought patterns just at? These are ways that we can also understand how they're wanting to speak to us, right? What song is on the radio? Different things like that. Clairgustance, which is tasting. And that is, where you can actually taste something in your mouth. So maybe, you had a past loved one who passed, and this ties into smelling as well. I know I have a really good friend that has the smell of lemons come forward whenever her grandmother is close as one of her guides. And so smelling, tasting, right? These can be really connected in with a guide that brings, maybe a memory of a past loved one, or something like that. It's your guides are always talking to you in symbolisms that you're going to specifically understand, right? And so these are just some of the ways. And so I want to invite you into tuning into, okay, how do I know that I'm already receiving? And once you start to honor that, Claire, what you'll notice, it gives permission for them all to start to weave together. They all start to dance together. And over time, they all start to illuminate at different times, right? And so that's a little bit about how we actually receive.
Yeah, and it's important to really give yourself some grace with this one, because we all receive in such different ways, and one is not better than the other. And I've even heard Diana kind of poking fun at me, at times. And for those of you who are maybe new to this podcast, we bring in a Pleiadian being that I trance channel about halfway through the episode, and her name is Diana. And she, so I take a step back in my body, and so I'm not really here for these messages. And so she's lovingly joked around. It's like, she's saying, okay, this might look like a really psychic person who's got all these psychic gifts, and that's true, we all do, and she's like, but don't ask her to see anything. She'll get so scared. And I don't know how she words it. She's so funny. She has these ways of of talking about it or joking around about it, but that it's kind of like that, so it's like, yeah, I have an ability to get out of the way. that's not even a Claire, it's like, okay, I'm really good at getting out of the way, I'm just joking around, right? And so we all have our gifts and our abilities, and it does begin to kind of have this domino effect. It's like once one gate is really activated and awakened and illuminated, it's almost like it gives permission for the other ones to come through, and it softens the energy a little bit. So it's like what I've noticed over time is that my fear around seeing, for example, has diminished greatly as I've been using these other aspects of my abilities and these other clairs. The more that I use those, the more I get comfortable with my guides, the more I get comfortable in those unseen realms, the more it feels safe for me to see, and so it's kind of like that as well. And that gets into, all of those layers and reasons why, some of us don't feel comfortable opening up and tapping into our gifts or tapping into our guides and the things that we can do to kind of really set ourselves at peace with that. So we're going to dive into a few of those things as well. But really to answer this question, because we just kind of listed out some of the ways that you can, that you can kind of know how to receive, but doesn't really answer the question of how do I actually connect with my guides. And really the thread that you're going to hear throughout this is really rooted in devotion, really rooted in building a circuitry, building a relationship with your guides. And people will say, well, I don't really know how to do that, how to connect with my unseen team. I don't know how to connect with my guides. And they make it seem like it's this big deal. Like it's like there's this special key or this special code that you got to push to unlock the gate or something, or there's this whatever, there's this like all these kind of illusions or stories around that it must be difficult to do, especially if you don't view yourself as someone who is intuitive or psychic, or somebody that has these gifts naturally. It's like, well, only those psychic people can do that. And we're here to tell you that's not true, that they're actually here for you right now, and that they're with you, and they're showing you how to connect with them all the time. And so just know that that's really there. So it's really the key here is really being in the desire to have a relationship. That's really the key. And so building that through a devotional practice, being in a devotional relationship with them, really getting yourself in the habit of, before you get out of bed, just say, hey, I'm just so grateful for my guides. Thank you guys. I'm so pleased. You have my blessing and my permission to work through me today, to really, work on my behalf, to intervene from my best will, and for my highest good. Things like that, really begin that relationship, and what you'll notice is most days you're not going to see or feel or hear anything, and so part of it is really just staying in the heart, being open, and then really releasing the attachment of anything has to happen, because that's the other piece. It's like, oh, well, nothing happened, so I must be doing it wrong, or it must not be working. Right. And so really the main thing is here, and this kind of leads into the second question, is, how do you know when your guides are present? And a lot of times you won't have on a daily basis those signs to really show you that that's the case. It's really like that. Most of the time it's pretty quiet, even for us, a lot of days it's, we'll go through these times when they're speaking really loudly, maybe at decision points or, critical moments in our timelines, right? They'll show up really loud or in different ways. And other days it's just quiet, but it doesn't mean that they're not there. Oftentimes, they're really supporting even more in those moments, where it just is that loving presence. And so just really getting in that habit of creating a devotional relationship that you can really be in on a daily basis, where you get to just be in that circuitry, that love affair with your guides, with yourself. And it's the same as being in a relationship with a family member, with your loved one. So you're in a relationship with them, you're in a circuitry with them, you're in communication with them. If you didn't talk to your spouse every day, like that relationship would start to feel a little challenged over time, right? And it's the same thing with your guides as well. So just knowing that it works the same way that relationships do here on earth, in a sense, in terms of needing it to be nurtured, needing it to be watered and fed, and that it needs to have that circuitry of energy moving and growing and feeding into it. So those are just a few pieces. I don't know if you want to add to that, Shylo, before we continue on. if
Yeah,
anything's
I
coming
think
up.
the piece that I would love to add, because that was so beautifully said, was, and Ava, you just shared this of sometimes it is quiet for us. And the message that's come through for me, because I've asked about this, why some days, sometimes you're so loud and sometimes you're not. And the message that I've had that comes through is there are times when we're also being asked to lean into having faith in what we are not able to see, having faith in the unseen, because it really assists us in building this sovereignty container within ourselves and trusting that they are there holding us, even if we cannot see them, right? It's in the same way of sometimes we may get the next couple of steps, but we're not meant to see the entire picture. Sometimes we need to be in a trust fall with source, God, universe, to actually take that leap, to trust that the next step or next stone is going to appear. And so if they were just there all of the time supporting and guiding us, right, it would take away from the humanness of us down here. And so sometimes we need to lean into faith, and we're being asked to trust more and to trust in what we cannot see. And so it's, for me, I have so much gratitude when I can feel them, when I know that they're there. And then the times when I'm not seeing or hearing anything, I have a conversation still just as they are there within my heart. I connect to them, I pour into them, I send blessings to them. And so just know that it gets to be like that, right? And it really is, just as Ava was saying, in the circuitry and building those relationships and honoring and pouring into them. And you would be so surprised at the magic that can come through in those relationships for you. There's so much there for you to discover with them. And so that'll lead us into the next question of, well, who are my spirit guides, right? That's such a big question that I get, and in when I'm doing Akashic record sessions, or in the play container, in the membership that Ava and I do, of like, well, who are they? And again, this is a time for you to really tune into those relationships for yourself, because the design of it is so intricately unique to you, right? And so I also want to say, a question that I get is a lot of people get really kind of hung up on what their names are. And I will say, I know the names of some of my guides, and I have no idea the names of some of the other ones. I can feel them, I can see them, and I know that they're there, and I can feel their loving embrace. But sometimes we know exactly who it is, and we get a name, and other times maybe we don't exactly get the name. And so there's also a non-attachment to it, of what is wanting to be revealed at certain times will be revealed, and it's all here happening for you. There's such a beautiful poetic design to all of this. And so some of your spirit guides may be healed ancient ancestors, so those that actually were in the physical bloodline of yours through your ancestral line. And I like to call in the healed ancient ancestors, because it just, you don't want to be stirring up some unhealed or wounded ancestors. Not that we don't want everyone to be heard and seen in the unseen realms as well, but just making sure that you're calling in those that are really here, lovingly wanting to support you, serving your highest good, working with the divine truth and love and light as well. So healed ancient ancestors, past family members, right? There's an incredible book. My right ear is ringing like crazy right now, so one of my clairs is going off. There is a really powerful book that I'd love to recommend about this. It's called Spirited. I'm not sure exactly who it's by, but maybe I can put it in the show notes down below. But it talks about certain times the soul will create contracts where if a family member passes early on for you, that they've actually passed on because there was a contract made before you even came here for them to be a guide of yours, for them to be a spirit guide. And so they were able to be here in the physicality with you. And then they went on where they can support and actually serve your soul's journey on an even heightened and higher level that maybe, can be very difficult because we're not able to see it. But when you start communing with your spirit guides, that may open up and activate a lot for you. And so it could be a past family member. Ascended masters, right? There are many, many ascended masters. And so that can look like Yeshua, Mother Mary, right? There's Kuan Yin, there's Buddha, there's Merlin, right? The list goes on. If you're curious of all the ascended masters, you can just go Google who are all of the ascended masters, right? There's 33 to be exact, because that is the frequency of the ascended master. And so tune in, and Saint Germain was a big one that was coming through for me in the beginning of my journey. And so tune into, okay, well, who am I feeling drawn to as well? That may be something, right? Maybe you're not hearing anything from them, but all of a sudden you're feeling drawn to Google one of the ascended masters and you're not sure why. Get curious about that, because that's how they speak to you as well, right? Maybe you're on YouTube or Instagram and all of a sudden you're seeing a reel about one of the ascended masters and you can just feel something in your being, right? And it's just like, I feel drawn to this. This is lighting me up, or I'm feeling emotional, right? It's like those are the cues for you to bring that deeper awareness to as well. Some of the archangels, right? So calling in the angelic realm. I love working with the angelic realm. They're so pure. There's so much love. And there's many angels that are here to support you in different ways, right? There are healing angels. There are money angels. And trust Ava and I when we say this, right? Call them in. Call your money angels in. Let them pour gold onto you. I know it sounds maybe a little silly, but don't knock it until you try it, because it might just blow your analytical mind out of the water. Open your heart and let the angels really work with you, right? We have the galactic family, as Ava was just saying, right? We have Diana here, who's going to come in a little bit, who is a Pleiadian being and who is also in the collective of the living Ma, who's a number of different of these beings, right? Ascended masters, there's galactic family. I don't even think we know exactly who's even fully in there. I'm sure the list goes on. And that's something that we'll continue to discover as Diana continues to come through. But our galactic family, right? Tuning into what are the lineages here that are wanting to work with you? Pleiadians, Arcturians, Syrians, our Lyran family, right? There's Andromeda, there's so many. And so tuning into what feels true for you and where is your heart leading you and guiding you. The souls that are here to be your spirit guides, they've traveled with you many, many lifetimes, and they actually have a very potent relationship with you beyond even this physicality, right? And so there's been this circuitry that's been building for many, many, many lifetimes. And so it's just a remembrance, it's just awareness, it's just turning that on and going, oh yeah, I'm gonna continue that circuitry because it has been building for many lifetimes. And these can change throughout your life as well. I know in my own experience, I've had times where I'm being called to work with specific guides. Right now I'm working with mostly the ascended masters, and so my galactic family. And so there's specific guides that may come forward for you at different times depending on what you're moving through. If you're going through certain transitions in your life, maybe there's belief systems you're moving through, right? And so it's all, again, this is such a sacred encoded individual journey for you to be in deep self-discovery with them. And so call them in, see who's there, and just bring in loving curiosity around it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Play with this. This gets to be fun. This gets to be lighthearted. It gets to be an ancient family reunion is just what I'm hearing them call it.
Oh, I love that. I love that phrase. It's the ancient family reunion, because that is really, really what this is. On the earth here, is just, it feels like one big galactic reunion of these souls that have chosen to come here at this particular time in history. And as you're saying, it gets to be fun and let it be playful. I was just reminded of a story that it wasn't the other day, but there was a moment when I was in the car picking up my kids from school, and we were a little tight on money, and I was just about ready to go dip into that storyline of worry and fear and trying to figure it all out in my head. And how many times do we know, right, how frequency works, and how the whole magnetism game works, or in terms of creating your reality. So like, I'm knowing this, right, and I'm just like, oh, here we go. Are we going to do this? And right in the moment where I'm about ready to dip into that lower frequency, my daughter, my oldest daughter, literally, it had been silent in the car. Nobody had been talking. All the kids in the car was silent. Literally out of nowhere, I'm thinking that I'm about ready to dip in. My daughter's like, "Hey, mom." I'm like, "Yeah, what is it, Ebony?" She's like, "Do you remember that day when I had pockets full of money?" I was like, "What are you saying right now?" She's like, "Yeah, remember we were playing at my friend's house, and my pockets were heavy. They were so heavy. They were filled with money, so much money." And it sounds silly, but I literally, when she was saying these words, it was as if I was hearing my angel speaking through her mouth. It was literally, I just knew without a shadow of a doubt in that moment that these are my guides, literally telling me to knock it off, literally telling me, "Hey, are we really going to go into that frequency? Because you don't have to. We're right here. We've always been here. And you really don't need to entertain those lower frequencies right now, because you're protected, you're safe, you have all of your provisions. We're here for you." And it was literally coming through the moment. And it was completely, there was no conversation around that. There was no prompting of that. It was like, again, it's just a quiet moment in the car. And it's just to remind us that your guides are really wanting to connect with you, and they comes through in so many different ways. So to be open to it showing up on license plates, be open to showing up in your children's voices, be open to it showing up in these moments where it just seems like, a plant, it can show up in so many different ways. And you just have to be open with the curiosity and the willingness to receive in the different ways that it comes through, because it just does. It just comes through in so many ways when you're open to receiving it. And they're always trying to communicate with you. So when you say like, "Oh, how do I know if they're communicating?" Just open yourself up to it and don't question it. When you have a moment like that and you're like, "Wow, was that one of my guides?" If you're questioning it, yes, of course it is. Of course it is. And these kind of things become more and more solidified as not only like a truth for you, but like really like concrete in your reality. Like it really becomes just the way that you're living your life, and it just becomes more solid in how you're relating with the world, relating with the unseen world especially. So I just thought that was a fun story, because it just really reminds us of just the different ways that can come through.
Yeah, I love that story so much because it's such a perfect example of like, we don't have to be sitting in silence at our altar space to be hearing our guides. They are living, breathing through every aspect of your life if you have the eyes to see them and you have the ears to hear them. And so, for your guides to just, the angels so beautifully to just speak through your daughter, speak through Ebony in a time where you are about to go into a moment of lack. What are the odds that she talks about? Remember when my pockets were just overflowing with money? Like, that is undeniable. And that's around us at all times for us to tune into and tap into. And sometimes it's way less subtle than that, right? Because that was like a pretty like, oh, okay, I hear you kind of thing. And sometimes it's softer. Sometimes it's more subtle. Sometimes you really have to be looking or watching for it, or you'll miss it. But they're really speaking to us through every aspect of our life. And so thank you for sharing that, because I feel like that's going to give everyone just a greater idea of, oh, okay, it's not just so black and white sitting in meditation. Can I hear them or can I not hear them? Can I just be available? Can I be available through every moment of my day to hear them, to feel them, to receive messages, to be open to miracles landing in my life?
Absolutely. And that really ties into kind of what we were touching on earlier, but a really common question that we both get asked a lot, which is, can anyone connect with spirit guides? Can anyone do it? Like, how does this even work? And the answer is, of course, yes. Yes. And it's just what we were saying earlier about it really being about showing up in the circuitry, showing up in a devotional practice, showing up and being available, just as Shylo was saying. And that's really as simple as that. And it's really important that we don't overcomplicate it or make it seem more grandiose than it is, right? Because just because they're not in the seen world, it all of a sudden feels like this mysterious, magical thing that is only available to certain people who can, you know, pierce through your soul with their eyes and see everything about your life, kind of thing. It's like, it's not that level of magic at all. You know, it is very magical in the sense of it being this awe-inspiring, wonderful experience that we all get to have through the majesty of life itself. And life itself is magical. It's magical in that sense, but it's not magical in the sense of being out of reach for most anybody. You know, it's really something that's very tangible in that sense. And you know, in that way, you know, it's really this practice of being in your heart and being in gratitude and just taking the time to just be in that relationship. And it really, we're going to be saying this throughout because it really is that simple. And we like to overcomplicate things when it doesn't need to be that way. It can be really simple. Just make the time. Just make the time.
Yes, absolutely. Make the time, lean in, open yourself. And, one of the next questions that's I think is probably one of the most common things that I hear is, how do I trust the guidance I receive? Right? And so this is really just building off of everything that we've already shared of it is trust is built over time, right? Just as it's really built with anyone over time. And sometimes, at least in my experience, and this is what I was sharing to Ava when we were really sitting down to channel this episode was, in my experience, because maybe my soul has liked to take the hard way at times, it's been trial and error, right? I hear the message, I receive the download, and then I don't fully trust it. And maybe I lean into a little bit of fear around maybe the opposite, right? I'll just give a really brief something that I just moved through very recently. I'm still actually kind of moving through, right? And it's around my passport. I'm going on this trip soon, and my passport was stolen when I'm in Canada right now. I was down in the United States, and so I had to go through this whole process of getting my passport. And I had a message of, just wait until you get back home for the holidays and go in and just go in and get it that way. It'll be way less stressful. And my guides made it so clear. But I had fear of, because I have a trip coming up, well, what if I don't get it in time? And of course, it was this whole thing. And what ended up happening, I had to go in and get it here in person anyway. And it was just this whole, I just made things so much more stressful on myself. I added like 50 more tasks to my plate of driving around and printing things off and going to the mail and getting pictures. Like, it was just this whole fiasco that I created for myself because I didn't trust. And I literally, when I got called to go into the passport office here, because this is a very real human thing, I was laughing to myself when they told me, you're going to have to go get it in person. And I just went, oh my goodness, I'm still not fully listening to my guides and trusting the information. And so that to me, right? Because I tuned in. It's like, this is how we build the trust, right? We get the message, and then whether we choose to listen to it or not, right? Maybe we choose not to, and we take the opposite path because we don't trust. And then when the thing ends up happening where we go, "Oh man, I knew," right? And I know you've all had this moment of like, "I knew it. I had that gut feeling I knew." go back to the remembrance, go back, like go in your filing cabinet and feel into that moment. How was it? How did it come through? Was it an inner knowing? Was it a gut feeling? Was it a message? Did you have a visual? And remember how that felt. There's a clear distinction of how that came through for you, so that the next time when you have another you have another opportunity to lean in and you're getting another message, you go, "Oh, I remember this feeling. I remember this message. I remember this inner knowing. Okay, I'm going to pause. Yeah, I know this. I'm going to trust this. I can trust myself. I can trust my guides. I can trust the universe, God source, creator for where I'm being led. I trust." And so sometimes it takes fumbling around and falling down a couple of times before we can actually fully trust the information. And maybe not. Maybe it's just so crystal clear. It's like, this inner knowing is so undeniable. I cannot deny it. But if you're working on that trust, know that your guides are going to give you opportunity to learn how to trust the information coming through.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
just notice, yeah, bring in awareness. And even, right now, just what are some of the times where you haven't trusted? And you kind of can go through that blueprint of it. And then times that you have and it has worked out, right? And so it's just loving awareness. It's loving awareness.
Hmm. That's a really important point that you're just making right now. And I think for a lot of people, and I know I myself included, and especially early on in my journey with this process, is, like the trust piece also comes up in this angle of, well, how do I know that these guides are benevolent? Like, are all guides benevolent? Are all spirit guides benevolent? Are they all for my highest good? And this is an important question, because it's really easy to stay in this conversation, in this frequency of, it's all love and light, it's all magical, it's all wonderful, it's all, just beautiful, and there's nothing to worry about. And what we'll say about that is the answer is yes. Your spirit guides, the ones that you have agreed to be your helpers, that you've contracted before you even came onto this planet, like, yes, those guides that you have a relationship with, that are here for you specifically, are always benevolent. The meaning, they're always for your highest good. Are all beings? No. And this is the important distinction here, because it's important to recognize that when we're working in the astral realm, right? The astral realm is 50-50,
Mhm.
meaning it's 50% benevolent, 50% malevolent. And it's not to instill fear by any means. And Diana channels about this, other channelers talk about this, of how when you're talking about the realm of light and dark, how it doesn't have so much gravity in that realm. It actually is kind of like a game. It's like, oh, I'm going to go play the bad guy over here for a little bit. And it's like, okay, cool. I'll go play the good guy. They go and they do it. They come back and they break bread. And they're like, oh, you did a great job. It's not so serious in that way. So we like to think of this, or not like to, but we have a tendency to put all this energy toward, oh, these are bad guys, or these are energies that are not good, and like, and we have all this fear around it and all this stuff around it, and it's all entities and all these things, and it can feel a little bit scary or overwhelming, or just kind of, there can be fear around it, if you don't know what's going on, or what you're working with, or what's out there, so we're not going to keep it in this realm of kind of this disillusion of what is actual reality here. So it is important to know how to discern in this world, when you're working in these realms, and it's really important to actually be anchored in this relationship of circuitry, because then it creates this foundation that's so strong, it's impenetrable, and that's really where it gets to over time. It's like when you're working through these layers here, with your own guides, the more that you're working through here, you're building your light, you're building your vessel, you're building your capacity to hold more and more light. you're building a vessel in a container that's so strong, it really can't be penetrated. It might attract that those dark, like it's like a moth to a flame, right? It's like the brighter your light is, the stronger that flame, that it's going to attract the moths, but they just get burned up. It's really like that. They can't really be around that much of a high frequency. They just can't stay around it. It's not a resonance. It's not a match. So just kind of have that faith too. And I don't know if you want to dive into a little bit more of these subtleties here, Shylo, because this is a really important topic for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why it's so important when you're calling in your guides, when you're working with your guides, right? To make sure that you are calling in those that are benevolent, right? And so it's why we always state like calling in, utilizing an invocation, right? And something that can look like is calling in, right? All of those beings that are really here to serve your highest truth and light through the purest form of unconditional love. Be something as simple as that, but really making sure you're protecting yourself. If you know how to grid, work with sacred geometry, those types of things, you can really grid and protect yourself in that space. But if you are feeling something sticky come into your field, right? This frequency will feel like the malevolent frequency does. It feels sticky, right? It just feels like, oh, I just feel something kind of like almost like something brushes on your arm, or like, you can kind of get those chills up your back, or just something feels a little off, right? All of a sudden you feel a little fear coming in, or there's some sort of stickiness. Something that has come up that I've had experience with before as well is all of a sudden intrusive thoughts come up, right? Maybe you're having some visuals of something that isn't desirable visuals, or some intrusive thoughts are coming forward. Being aware and having awareness when that wants to come up, and when that is coming up, especially if you're working in a channeling session with your guides, or you're in a moment of connection, or maybe you're just, walking into you know, a, a new space or something like that, right? That just has some sticky energy in it. And so not all beings are here for your highest good, right? Just as Ava was saying, the more that you even illuminate your flame, the more that you bring in more light into your being and your body, it is going to magnetize in the opposite polarity, right? And so it's not to have fear, but it is a very real thing that can come up. I know I've had many experiences from darker energies throughout my life, and I see it all as a gift because it's brought me into more resilience, understanding my own sovereignty, how to protect myself, how to clear my energy. And you can get to a point of really seeing it as the neutrality of what it is, right? Not even shaming yourself or falling into a lot of fear when you're feeling those things come forward of, oh, I'm feeling there's something sticky in the field. I feel like maybe there's an entity that might be attached to me or could be in the space. And instead of falling into a fear and actually just igniting that frequency further, I have awareness of it, and I'm going to stand in my sovereignty, and I'm going to clear that out of the space. And to do that, you can call in the benevolent guides who are here to serve you, the angelic realm, the archangels, Archangel Michael, Archangel Metatron, incredible, especially Michael, incredible protector, can come in with his sword and just clear the field, release any cords, any attachments, anything that you have that's just doesn't feel good, right? It can be a mirror for you to claim your power and sovereignty. And so it's noticing, right? A benevolent being isn't going to make you feel icky or sticky or fear or intrusive. None of that's going to come up. And so if you're feeling that, it's pause, breathe, ground in, call in the benevolent beings, ask for loving support, clear out, pull light in, right? Unconditional love, whatever your process is, right? There's so many different ways to do that, but that's just one way of really clearing that out of the field. But have awareness around that, right? Because it really is a real part of this. And it doesn't have to be something that brings in so much fear that it actually deters you from connecting with the benevolent ones, because you're so protected, right? And so, um, you know, it's important for us to talk about this because it is a real part of it. But just know that um, you get to be a sovereign being in all of it. There's nothing, or there's no one or no thing that can take your power away in this life unless you allow it to. And so I see all of these interactions as a gift of resilience and really understanding how to be in mastery of your multidimensionality, and to be a light leader here. I know that all of you listening, you're in some way, shape, or form in a leadership role in your life as a light leader. And so to know these skills and to know how to work through these different things that come up can really assist in serving others as well. Knowledge can really be power in these sort of circumstances. So I'll just add that. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share on that as well.
Yeah, all that's so important, right? And this is not, again, to create or instill fear here, because really this is way more common than most people even realize, to have attachments, energetics, frequencies that are not you, that are not of your essence. That happens way more frequently than you would even believe. Like over 50% really of the population has this kind of stuff going on. And it's just a matter of really, like she was saying, clearing it out, having a practice or a way that you're tuning in and getting that clarity, even if it is, having a, like an energetic clearing, or working with someone who does that work on a regular basis, just to make sure that you're staying clean, staying clear. And the other important part to this is, if you're feeling sticky energy, that is not your guide. That is not your guide. And that is a very important, clean distinction for a way to discern. So if you're feeling anything, any intrusive thoughts that are not common in your character, that is not your guide. Period. End of story. Okay. Your guides they're going to feel like family members, the ones that you actually like, the ones that you actually love and want to be around. They're the ones that you actually feel like old family, like familial, like your best friend. That it's this feeling of safety, this feeling of trust, this feeling of familiarity. It's really the ones that when it's the ones in your soul family that you trust the most, that you're just like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to see you, but I want you there for me. I want to be able to hear you, and please make sure you're showing me in the ways that I know I'll be able to receive. It's that kind of relationship. And so don't be afraid of it, right? Don't be afraid of it. We're just bringing forth this aspect because you are working in the astral realm. And it is 50-50 out there. And if you haven't done your due diligence to clean up your energetic field, it can be sticky. It can be messy. It can be that way. And so we're just saying it so that you have the awareness to be proactive in going and finding a shaman that's local that can help to just say, hey, can you just do a quick energy clearing for me, so that I just know that I'm clean and clear. You just don't know until you know, unless you know. And so it's important to have that just done, so then you can be like, okay, I know that there's nothing attached to me. There's no stickiness in my field, and I'm doing my practices to build my light body every single day. I'm building my frequency every single day, and I'm in devotion with universe, source, God, and I'm building that relationship with my guides every single day. I might not be hearing them or seeing them today, but I'm talking to them. I'm building that circuitry, right? It's like it's the prayer is talking to God, and meditation is listening to God, right? It's the same thing with your guides. It's like you have to create that circuitry, and so it has to go both ways. So you have to be communicating, and then you have to be making time to receive. That's what builds the circuitry. So both of those things have to be activated. You have to be communicating on a daily basis. Have some words coming out of your mouth of gratitude for your guides every day. Ask them to be present in your life. Ask them to go to work on your behalf. And this is a key piece that has to be said. Your guides are in the same dimensionality of law in terms of free will that we are. So you can have all these contracts with many guides, many guides. And a lot of them, and I can tell you a story. I went and had a reading not too long ago from a really dear friend of mine. And she said, you've got some protector angels that are literally sitting up here twiddling their thumbs, waiting for you to tell them to go to work. They are here for you to protect you while you're channeling. They're here to protect you while you're sleeping. They're here to protect you. And they've got swords. They are the biggest badasses you've ever seen. And they cannot do anything for you because you have not said yes. They cannot violate your free will. You have to say, yes, please protect me. You have to say, yes, money angels, please bless me with money. You have to say, my healing angels, please. Yes, you have my permission to heal me. You have my permission to be intimately involved in my life. You have my permission to intervene for my highest good. You have to say those words. And I even throw in a caveat. I was like, I might forget tomorrow. So I just want to throw it out there. You all my guides, known and unknown, you all have my permission. If I have made a contract or agreement with you that you are going to be in relationship with me in this way, you all have my permission to work with me. You all have my blessing. Whether I say that to you every single day, whether I'm saying that to you before I go to bed or before I wake up, if there's a day that I miss, know that you still have my permission. And I kid you not, the first time that I actually said those words, it was like, and all the ones that I just don't even know about, that I don't even remember making an agreement with, just so you all have my blessing. You all have a yes from me to do that. Please just know that I want you to be working for me in my life. I felt this flood of energy come into the room. Like it was literally like swarms of guides coming into the field, like to really be with me. And I could feel, wow, there have been a lot sitting on the sidelines waiting for me to say yes, because they couldn't violate my free will. So make sure that you are actually doing your part to call them into your life. And that is really working with your guides, connecting with your guides 101, is understanding the laws of the universe and how this all works, and knowing that you have to actually put out the circuitry and put out the call for them to actually hear and be able to start working in your life.
Beautiful. That's so well said, of really just taking the time to call them in and be in that circuitry. And, I have very similar experiences of that, of calling those in that I didn't even know were there. And all of a sudden it's like this celebration that I had no idea that they were all waiting around for me to show up to my own party, and then here we are, right? And so it gets to work like that. It gets to be that easy. And so, yeah, how are we feeling? I'm feeling like this is a great window to bring in Diana. I don't know how
I
you're
mean, of
feeling.
course, you're just talking about showing up for your own party. I mean, this is the perfect time to bring in Diana. For those of you who are maybe new to this podcast or new to our container here, Diana is a Pleiadian, as we mentioned earlier, who is hilarious. She loves to joke. She's the really the mastermind behind P.L.A.Y, behind Pleiadian Light Ascension Yard, and the one that's really been kind of pumping in all the details of this container as we've been building it. And she is a guide. She's one of my main guides, and she is really here in the highest frequency of love and light to bring forth these messages, specifically from the Pleiadians, but also from the frequency of the living Ma, containing many ascended masters, as we said, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, St. Paul, Isis, Yeshua. There's many in this container that are here supporting this container. And Diana is really the funniest of them all that I've met so far. And so it's really the perfect time to bring her in to see what she has to say around this topic. So I am a trance channel, which means I take a step back in my body and I allow her to come forth and animate my body and my voice. And that is an agreed upon relationship that we have together. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and go right out, and we'll put you in touch with the Pleiadians. Here we go. Greetings, this is Diana, you see, of the Pleiadian family. We are here, we like to say first and foremost, especially on today's topic, you see, to bring the love, you see. It is one thing, you see, to talk about, well, are your guides of the light, you see. More importantly, are they of the love, you see. Because the light, you see, is just the light, you see. You can be of the light, you see, and still be what you are calling the malevolent one, so to speak, because the demons, for example, are the frequency of fire and air, you see. So they are light, you see, but they do not have the love frequency. So it's important to distinguish here, are you in the frequency of the love, you see. And if they are in the frequency of love, well, they'll be able to say it. You see, I am in the frequency of love. They will be able to also repeat names of God, divine, holy names, holy frequencies. So if you have any of those with whatever tradition, you see, we have the Yod, the He, the Wahe, the Tetragrammaton, so to speak, you see. One way, you see, you could just ask them to repeat a holy name, you see. Any of the ones, you know, Jesus, Buddha, whatever, you see. They will not even be able to say these names because they are not in the higher frequency. They are not able to be in that vibrational match, so they are not even able to communicate these names of God. So if you are ever in the question of who you are talking, you have maybe one hanging out, you're like, I'm not so sure about you. You just say, well, could you please repeat the name of God? And could you please tell me how much love you have in your heart, you see? And can you please repeat the words, I love you, you see? See if they're able to say that. It's a very simple one, you see. And if they are not able to say these things, you see, they will just go because they are not able to hold in that vibration, you see. So anyway, before we get too off on the topic, we have to drink the earth, you see, sip on the earth a little bit, you see, we like to do, because this is the gift we have from Ava. She gives us a gift every time. And this is also for everyone here listening in on the podcast, you see, to have your own cup of tea here handy, where we can sip together the earth and really be in the circuitry together. So we have, I have no idea, you see, this is really the hilarious part, is we really come in and we just trust the Ava that she's going to give us something good to drink every time. So let's hope for the best here. Let's see what we have. You know, that tastes like one made from her husband. You see, we can feel his frequency in that one. So very good. How are you, my dear Shylo? Where would we like to go in the conversation today?
Hi, Diana. I'm doing so well. Thank you for being here with us. As always, we feel so blessed and honored to have you in the space with us. So, we are diving into all things spirit guides, and we had a number of questions that we just went through that were really just like the number one questions that we received from those that are really feeling called to activate their spiritual gifts, start connecting with their spirit guides, and some of the burning questions that they have of like, how do I know that my spirit guides are present, and who are they, and how do I connect with them on a deeper level? How do I trust them? Those kind of things. And so we went through and answered those questions to our perspective, and we would love to just hear your perspective on just in which ways that our listeners, maybe that we haven't shared, or maybe just in a new way of how we've shared it, how they can start connecting with their spirit guides, getting to know them, and just anything that you want to share around that specifically.
Very good, you see. So we will named a lot of them from the higher realms, you see. There are also the guides that are of the love and the light and are really of your highest, you see, for your highest, that are in the earth realm as well, you see. And there are many souls that are really connected into the earth, you see, specifically. And there are many that ancestors, for example, that will be in the trees, for example, things like this, you see, or in the animals, you see, can be really having a relationship with a specific animal. You see, whether that be a pet or whether that be a crazy bird that just will not leave, you see, comes back over and over again, something like this. You see, we have these stories, you see. But this is another way that we have our guides, you see. Oftentimes these will be more the bloodlines or the soul agreements of those who have also walked on the earth, because obviously they are just in a different form, you see. And so these are ones that are really just here to really hold in the frequency of the love, you see, oftentimes, you see. So this is another way to think about, oftentimes our pets are these for us, you see, are our guides, you see. So this is why everyone has says, oh, this is like my child, you see. It's very much like that for many people, you see. And this is one reason why it is so, because it is really your soul family, you see, being with you in a different kind of way, different kind of relationship, you see. And this is very fun when you start to look at all the different timelines of how these relationships are interacting. Sometimes you're married, sometimes you are a family member, sometimes there's all kinds of different possibilities. You see, sometimes one is a human, one is an animal, sometimes one is in the astral realm, one is a human, sometimes one is in the astral, one is in the trees. You see, there's so many different combinations, you see. Sometimes both are trees, you see, and then you find them hugging in the intertwining, you see, weaving together, because you've seen these pictures before of the two trees that will come together like that. This happens all the time, you see. So this happens in many different ways, you see. So it is important to recognize just the many infinite ways that we can be in relation with really ourselves, you see, through the eyes of another, you see. And so this is really the ways that we put in the hologram, the holographic reality, little road signs or little road maps for our own consciousness to remember who we are, you see. This is really the way, you see. So we put it in different frequencies, different forms, different vibrations, different even roles to play out, you see. And these are just the ways of giving us the best shot at remembering the truth of who we are, you see. Because at the end of the day, we are creating our reality through the holographic field, you see, of our vibration, our frequency, you see. But it is really all us. It is really all you. It is really all the one, you see. Just the different facets of it, you see. So we get to play in this world where it all feels very separate. It all feels like one over here and one over here, you see, and we are separate from that, you see, but they get to tell us what to do and all these kind of things. But it is really you telling yourself, you see, through a different lens, through a different mirror, through a different perspective, you see. So that's an important reminder, you see. So you can think about it even like your higher self, you see, through the different mirrors or lenses, you see, because this is really another way, you see. So it is really important to just understand how it can happen through all different ways. You see, you can have it in the elements, you see, in the ocean, in the fire, you see, in the wind, you see, all these different ways, in the earth herself, you see, that this communication can happen, you see, the little messages here and there, you see. It comes in through it in different ways, but this is really you giving yourself little reminders. Remember who you are, my dear. So it is really that way, in the simplicity of it, you see. And in that way, it gets to be very sweet. It's a very sweet relationship. And then all of a sudden you get to see yourself through a new lens and a new relationship. And then all of a sudden you're in this beautiful sweetness, this beautiful way of relating with yourself through the eyes of another. And what a beautiful opportunity that we have in this duality, you see. It's just so special, so precious, you see. So what we'll say too, you see, so you have all these different guides, so to speak, which is really just yourself talking to yourself through another lens, you see, through another version, you see, reminding you to wake up, you see, reminding you the truth of who you are, you see. And at the same time, you see, you have really the discernment of really recognizing the different frequencies that are available in consciousness, you see, and really discerning what is serving your highest purpose in this particular moment, you see. So this is why you can have different guides at different times in your life, because you're moving through different frequency of vibration, and it shifts the hologram, it shifts the whole, you see. And so you are really at a different angularity and on polarity. You're really looking through the lens of life through a different perspective. So you have, it's like you're moving through consciousness, and so the guides move and change as well, you see, because you are now having a new experience, and so the information perhaps, or the support that would be necessary does shift as well, you see. You said this a little bit, the Shylo commented on this as well, you see. So this is important to recognize. And some guides you have with you your whole life, you see. Other times we are in these moving faster of times where many of the light workers right now do not keep the same guides for long, because you're moving through almost like 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 lifetimes in one life, you see. Meaning you're really changing who you are so quickly. You're really evolving so quickly that you are able to move through, and then you really do need new guides for different phases of your life, you see. So this is also important to recognize that it is just like relationships on the earth. They serve a purpose for as long as they serve it, and then we close the relationship. Some relationships are lifetime, others are only for a moment, for a conversation, and everything in between, you see. So it is really just understanding the purpose of every single moment in our life,
what is going to best serve that, and then having that version of yourself come to give you the guidance that you need at that particular moment in time. Isn't that fascinating?
That's so fascinating. I love how you just shared that of, some people are here just for a season and some others are here for a lifetime. And there's purpose in learning and lessons and growth. And it's all part of the divine blueprint that's really created. I love how you were saying it's really you leaving messages for you. And how that can be through the lens of animals and the elements and just these different aspects that you also brought in, I think are a really important and beautiful perspective of it that we definitely didn't touch on. So thank you so much for bringing that part into it. And in even like diving into the understanding of this is really all just you in these higher aspects of the plane of existence. And I like how you also said it's this at different times of where you're at in the holographic experiencing universe and where you're at, because anyone that's listening to this, you have experienced many death and rebirth cycles in your life. And so you're constantly being birthed into a new, and there's always support for you on the other side of that rebirth that's very much designed through your higher self, is what I'm hearing from you, Diana.
Precisely, my dear. And it is also important to note that we do make agreements, you see. We do make agreements with certain souls to be our guides, you see, and that they will come at certain points in the life. You mentioned this a little bit in the concept of when a loved one passes, you see, that it can look like that, you see. But ones that never touch their feet on the earth, you see, you have many like that make agreements with you to not come to the earth, to not be embodied, which is really for certain souls a big sacrifice of love, you see, for love, you see, for you to really be there as your guide. And you make this agreement, you say, okay, you're going to go and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be your guide, and I'm going to be here to for example, we'll use Abba's example here, to protect you, you see. But you have to remember free will. Please do not forget the free will. Please remember to go down there and tell me, go time. Yes, it's time to go. Make sure you tell me that so that I can do my job. And you say, oh, yes, we will not forget. Don't worry about it. We will not forget. You come here and you forget first thing. You come and you forget first thing. You see, so it is important that we really call in and give permission to our guides to be in that circuitry with us. As Ava was saying, it's so important. It's the most important thing, because most of us have guides that are not allowed to do anything right now, but to love, you see. And love, do not underestimate the power of love. So we are very tricky. We are very sneaky at how we can really do good work, you see, through just the love frequency, without intervening in the free will, without getting caught up in that piece, you see, because this is so important. The laws of the universe, to honor the laws of the free will, you see. If you ever have any kind of guide that is telling you what to do, you see, that is violating your free will, that is not a guide. That is not a guide for you, you see. So it's important to recognize that your guides are going to always have your best and highest interest at heart, you see. Always, without question. So if you are ever questioning that, then you need to come back to the basics, you see. Really saying, well, who is this that I'm talking to if it is not a guide, if I'm not feeling great about this, you see. You see, and so it is really what we were talking about with that discernment earlier on the conversation, you see. But really, at the end of the day, your guides are all there for your protection, for your growth, for your benefit, you see. But you have to let them in on the party, as you were saying, my dear Shylo. We loved that little bit from you, you see. You have to show up to your own party. You have so many there waiting with their paper hats and their little noise makers, you see. They're even sometimes waving them around. You say they've got the birthday cake ready to cut, you see. But there is no one here. There is no one here to celebrate because they have not said yes, you see. So we have to just watch them, sometimes falling around a lot. It's very painful. You see, it's very painful for the guides when you are not allowing us to be a part of your life, especially when you are going through the struggles, you see. So make sure that you are really building the relationship. So especially when we are in the struggle, we can when you're on what you call the struggle bus, you see, well, we can be the driver for you. So you don't have to feel like it is so much of a struggle. You see, this is the difference. But there has to be the relationship that is activated in order for it to all go well, you see. This is a little bit of everything, you see. But we really will say that there is not too much more to add to this level of conversation that you are already having here, because it is really so well laid out here. And what we will add here is just the simplicity of it all, you see. This really is like, you see, even it might seem a little odd for those who maybe are not too familiar with Daina, you see, but we hope that it just feels like talking to your crazy grandmother, you see. That is really what it is, you see. It's really talking to just a beloved that you really are friends with, you see. It is really like that with all of your guides. They really have the biggest heart for you, specifically for you, you see. So it is really, really meant to be a relationship that is feeding your soul, you see, because that is our agreement, is to help to feed your soul, you see. So it is important to allow it to happen, you see. And to just get curious about it and not put too much pressure on it, you see, because it is also a timing thing. You have these agreements that are made, not always from day one of birth all the way to day end of dying, you see, quote unquote dying. We all know that is a lie, you see, but you know what we mean, you see. This is not always the agreement. This is not always the agreement. Sometimes the agreement is, okay, well, when this particular moment happens, which again is in the free will reign, because you still get to choose when that moment is coming, you see, whatever the agreement, you say, okay, once this happens in your life, then it will come, you see. Sometimes that is what it is like, you see. Or once you have reached this particular spot, then we will be ready for it all, you see. Then you will be ready, you see, something like this. So there are moments that we put into agreements, you see, of saying, yes, when this happens, then we'll be on duty, so to speak. But you have to be the one to say yes. You see, you have to be the one to say, okay, I'm ready for my guides, you see. Do your jobs, do your work, you see. And then we are so excited. You have no idea how excited your guides get when you give them the green light. It is like Christmas Day times 100, you see. It is really the best experience, you see, because what else are we going to do? You see, we don't have the bodies, you see. You could get creative like Daina here, you see. We get a little bit of fun, you see. But in general, you see, we don't get to have that much exploration within that realm. So we really are here specifically for you, you see, who is in the body. You see, so we are sitting here waiting around, waiting. It's today going to be the day that they're going to say, yes, yes, come on in, you see. We are waiting patiently, eating our popcorn at the edge of our seats, waiting, you see. Is today going to be the day, you see. So we are so excited when the day finally comes that we get to be busy. We get to have our job that we really agreed on, you see. So we're holding up our end of the bargain, you see. We are here every day in, day out, you see. Here we are. You're not doing your job, so say yes, come in, you see. This is different, you see. So it is really that beginning of that relationship of saying, oh, I didn't even know I had to do that. I didn't even know that was part of the agreement. I forgot. They told me not to forget that part, that free will part. Oh, I forgot. And now it's been 40, 50, 60 years, or however long it has been for you. Maybe some of you are lucky and still in your 20s or 30s, you see. But, you know, in general, it's like, oh, that's so much time that you've been sitting there, you see. For them, it's not that big a deal, you see. Time is really not too important, you see. So we're really, it's okay, you see. But we are here for you. Just remember that. We are here for you. And we love it. And we love it very dearly. It's very sweet.
Beautiful. You mentioned something, Daina, that I want to just wrap back around to, because I think that it's such an important part and piece of the puzzle, maybe for many that are actually listening to this podcast episode, that sometimes, right, there's different aspects to it. So yes, we're calling you in, we're calling in our guides, we're ready to work with you, those that we're aware of, those that we're not, and all of these different aspects. And you also had shared that sometimes we have to maybe go through an experience, or maybe the way that I like to call it or look at it is like we go through these initiation times and periods in our life for us to maybe be a vibrational match. Maybe we need to release some of the density or move through a process. And sometimes, that can look in so many different ways. But I see as sometimes when challenges come up, I'm really being called to go through an initiation so that I can open and expand my bandwidth to hold more and to tap into these higher realms. And, as you were sharing that, I was just thinking about even Abba's journey with you. And I know that's going to be a whole other episode, and so we don't have to dive too deep into that, but just witnessing Ava going through her initiations um, for the two of you to come together and have that contract, that it a certain timing of it, of like, okay, now it's time, because the Ava is ready and her vessel's ready. And I'm not sure what it looks like on your side, of course, but I just want to point that out, because it feels like sometimes we do when we're, I'm preparing to go into a retreat experience, and I've been connecting with Yeshua in a pretty deep level, and Melchizedek and Metatron are really helping me prepare. And I feel like I'm going through this initiation process with them, and I have no idea why or what it is or what it's about. And I'm just completely detached from what it is that's even happening. And I just keep showing up. I'm in devotion. I'm creating the circuitry. I'm leaning in, and I'm saying yes to where I'm being called and guided. And so I think that's a really important part. There's such a trust in how the divine plan is being laid out, and also the free will and saying yes and leaning in, but also knowing that the puzzle pieces kind of have to click together sometimes as well.
Exactly, precisely, my dear. This is very well put, you see. And it goes in both directions, you see. So we do have certain guides that are there for the high moments, so to speak, the expansion. You see, okay, when we get to almost one step below angelic, that's when your turn. You see, that's when you come in to just get me that all the way to the finish line, so to speak. Not so common, you see. Perhaps a few you have that kind of experience, you see, but it's also in the realm where, as you were saying, it's a frequency, it's a vibration, you see. So as you move through different frequency of experience, you see, you have the different guides that are resonating at those particular frequency of dimension. So it is frequency to frequency, dimension to dimension, you see, honor to honor in that way, you see. So in the same way, because of the free will, you have to get a little bit creative in how you're writing up these contracts, you see, these agreements, you see. So you say, okay, if we get down there, the human gets down there, and they decide to go through these free will path all the way down to these lower frequencies of suicidal ideation, for example, you see. Perhaps somebody's just really not really wanting to be on the planet anymore. Perhaps there's a soul, an agreement there with the guide says, okay, if you take a few turns and you go to this place where you're going to be having a challenging time in this particular way and not really wanting to be on the planet anymore, that's when I will come in to be your guide, you see, to really help you move through that darker time of your life, you see. And it is not saying that for certain it is going to happen, you see, because it is a frequency to frequency thing, and you still have the free will choice of where to ride in frequency, where to ride in consciousness. So that is why your guides change. It is not that your guides are just flip-flopping all over the place. It is you are choosing what frequency to experience in the ride of consciousness. You see, so you can choose to dip into a lower timeline, experience these suicidal ideation, or experience a divorce or a depression, or, right? All of these things that we consider negative or bad or whatever, which are simply experience in frequency, you see, that have a little bit more of a challenge when you're in the 3D form. You see, you have certain guides that are there for that particular frequency to hold you in that. And the same is true in the flip-flop side, you see. So you have the higher frequencies, you move through that experience, you say, okay, I want to just have the best life ever and really go for it, highest timeline every day, best day ever kind of thing. Well, you have your guides that are there for that party as well, you see. So you have it, and it is really set up by vibrational frequency. So you have it set up like that, where you get to kind of move and choose as you please in that particular way. still holding in that free will, but also kind of having your general idea of what you're going to go and accomplish, you see, in the overall theme of things, you see, because you can still choose. Yes, we are going to go doing that little suicidal ideation blip for a little bit just to see what it's like, you see, or perhaps you'll be like, I don't think we need to do that this time. I thought maybe we would want to, but not today, you see. And so then that guide's okay. We're not needed, you see. That's okay, you see. And so it kind of goes like that, you see, in that way. So this is really a frequency game, which everything is, and we all know this by now. You see, this is not new information for people to know that everything is working in the sense of frequency and vibration and energy. You see, this is not news for anyone. You see, but it might be, oh yes, of course it works like that with the guides, clicking of the dots in that way when you put it in those contexts, because we don't often think about it in that way.
Wow, yeah, that's so powerful to look at it through that lens of if you choose certain pathways, because there really aren't infinite. As you choose certain pathways, if you decide to go down one pathway, maybe a bit of a darker experience, there are certain guides that are ready to hold you in that, but that may not even ever be an experience that takes place. And so what I'm hearing is that there are contracts that may never actually play out or happen, depending on where you're actually choosing to go in the choose your own adventure story that is the human experience.
Precisely. You see, it's like just like you and the Ava, Shylo and Ava have you could say a quote unquote contract, but really they were very smart in how they did this. You see, they did not say, oh, we have to work together in this particular way for this amount of time to do this, 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 and this. They did not say anything of the sort. They said, we'll meet at this time. We'll meet in the flowers. And then we'll say, okay, well, if we would like to do it, we can do together, but it has to be in the frequency of joy, you see. That was the only thing they said to each other. Say, okay, we'll come together. We'll see how we are doing, if we are grooving in that way. And we'll say, okay, if we want to keep grooving, it has to stay fun, you see. That was the only agreement, you see. So sometimes it looks like that as well, you see, where it can just be fluid in that way. And you do have guides that are just there for the fun of it. You see, they are just there to be your laughing guide, for example. We have laughing guide, ones that are there to help us remember to lighten up, to crack a joke, to not take it too seriously, you see, to bring a little effervescence in. So you have a guide for pretty much anything you can imagine, you see. So if you're ever having a sticky or tight situation or just having a little bit of trouble, to say, well, I don't know if this is possible to have an angel or a guide that just does this kind of thing, but if there is, can one come? And you will be surprised. Almost always there is somebody that will come, you see. Mm-hmm. It is really fascinating. Try it out with the oddest thing you can think of, just for fun, and see what happens.
I love that. It's like a spiritual science experiment kind of thing of just testing it out and trying it out and see what works for you and maybe what doesn't, and just be in the exploration is what I'm hearing. Don't take it so serious. I think a lot of the times, even in these questions that we were answering, whenever we receive these questions, it's so serious. People are putting so much pressure on themselves. There's also underlying in that such a desire to connect deeper. And so just know that your guides are here to connect with you. They're waiting. They cannot wait. There's a celebration that's ready to take place for you. And so can you take some of the pressure off and have fun with it and get to just play in those frequencies, and get to explore of what's there for you, what wants to open and activate, and be in the excitement and the awe and the wonder of who is really here to support me at this time, and what does that look like, and what is that relationship how does that relationship get to bloom? Because if I even think of the times in my life where I've met maybe really important relationships, a partner or spouse, that the moment of the meeting and then how that unfolds, and the moment that you meet, right? When you meet someone important that comes in your life and your physicality, you have no idea in that moment. Maybe you can feel like, ooh, this feels big. I feel like I know this person, but I don't know. I feel like they're going to play an important role, but I don't really know how this is going to look and play out. And then all of a sudden, there's this beautiful love story or something that blooms and expands off of it. I feel like that with our guides as well. We really don't know the magic and the wonder and the awe and the beauty and the love and the connection that's really waiting for you if you just say yes and lean in and be in curiosity and start to create that circuitry and that connection. Because as Ava said it so beautifully earlier, it's, if you're not connecting with your spouse on a daily basis, right, it's over time that connection won't feel as strong, that bond won't feel as strong. And so what can happen over time for you in the compounding effect of being in circuitry with your guides, it's just infinite for you.
Precisely, you see, and this is really the way, you see, just like you were saying, the trust is built over time. It's the relationship, you see. Daina, you see, has been with Ava for eons, you see, for very, 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 very long time, you see. In this particular incarnation, you see, there is the right timing for it. And in the moment of the reunion, you see, coming in, you see, there is a little bit of who is this being? You see, what are they here for? What is her name? You see, all of these kind of things of coming into that relationship, that circuitry again, even though it is an old friend, you see, a dear old friend, you see. The circuitry is very strong in the energetics over time, but there is still the reactivation in this particular timeline that has to be built, has to be nurtured, you see. And so now, we've been together now for a while, you see, and so the relationship is stronger, you see. There is more trust there. She's able to stand a little bit further back, you see, really trust that Daina is not going to say something crazy. Well, maybe she does say crazy things, you see, but she trusts the information. She trusts that she can be over a little bit further away. It's okay, you see. So there's this thing that happens, you see, with all of our guides, you see, if this trust happens over time. And this is the same with our loving relationships in the forms, you see, just as we were saying, you see. So it works both of these ways, you see. So it is very important that we allow the practice to make the time to simply just connect and acknowledge the guides that are here for us. Just simply make it the practice. It does not have to be a long thing, you see. It can really take 10 seconds in the morning before you get out of the bed. You say, just say, thank you to all my guides. You all have my permission to be here and to help me today. You see, it does not have to be complicated. You do not have to go naming every single individual one. If there's one in particular that you really want to really go above and beyond in a particular day, want to get the gold star, you say, okay, you are really the one on duty today because we really need you today. You see, you can really call that in and really build that specific circuitry in a stronger way. But in general, you can just say, I'm calling you all, you see, because you all know what to do. You've all been waiting so patiently for me to say yes. I say yes, you see, please help, you see. It is like that, you see. But so you do that every day in a very simple way, you see. And then if you feel called to connect with the specific one, you call and connect with that specific one. You build that unique circuitry because every one of these is a relationship that you have, you see, and they all work a little bit differently. See, some like to sip the earth here, like Daina, you see. Some like to have a little candle lit, you see. Some don't give a care about any of that, you see, because it is really the frequency of your heart that is important to them, you see. So some will say, oh, you need to do all these things for all your guides. You need to have different altars for different ones. You need to have them all separated out and do the honor in the right way for all these guides, especially if you're working in the higher realms. You see, the descended masters, the archangels, you see these guides that are really the heavy hitters, so to speak, you see. They say, oh, they need so much reverence, so much prayer, so much honor, you see. And it is yes and it is no, you see. It is both, you see. It is yes in the sense that it is the circuitry, you see. So it is the deepest honor coming from your heart, seeing them through the eyes of the divine, seeing them through divine eyes, seeing the light and the spark of the divine within them and within yourself, you see. So activating that circuitry of honor is really the key piece, you see. Some like the different things. St. Paul, you see, another one that comes with the Ava, you see, he really likes the oranges. One day Ava put in the grapefruit. He didn't really like that too much, you see. didn't say, no, we can't have the grapefruit on the altar, but he says, we really prefer the oranges, you see. So now she knows, you see, we stick with the oranges, you see. So it is still in the same way that we have the preferences, they have preferences, you see, but it doesn't mean that they are going to say, no, I'm not going to help you today because you put the grapefruit instead of the orange, you see. There's not that strict in that way, because it is all frequency of the heart, you see. It is all frequency of the heart. And we all like to get the gifts at times, you see. It is nice. It is nice to feel loved in that way. It is nice to have someone light a candle for you. You see, think about your birthday, you see. Then we blow it out. We're not so sure how we feel about that part. But you see, we light the candle. We bring the light. And we say the little blessing, may this light bring you life. You see, may it elevate your spirit, you see. Because they are still choosing a fractalized experience in consciousness. You see, they have not merged completely back into the one. They are still fractal in consciousness to be of service. So they still like it. They still like these ways that we can honor and appreciate, you see. So really asking your guides, every guide, what do you have a preference? How would you like to commune with me today? How would you like to be in communion in general? Is there something that you like? Do you like the oranges? Do you like roses? Do you like me to be outside when we talk? You like to be by the trees, you see. Can I give you a glass of water? Can I make you an earth drink? Give you some tea? What can we do for you that would feel so loving, you see, because I'm so grateful for your presence, for you to help me. See, it's very, very rare that not everyone is coming into your form to have a sip of the tea like Diana is doing here, but it doesn't mean that they are not appreciating the action, you see, or the thought, you see. And then you can take the tea afterwards and feed it to the earth, to a plant. You see, you can be in circuitry with it, you see, or drink yourself. Ask them if they're saying that they want. You have to listen, because sometimes they will say, okay, now it's been blessed. We've been in circuitry with it. The tea is there. Now it's important for you to drink the tea so that you can be in the field and you can feel me stronger. Sometimes that will be the message, for example, you see. Or they'll say, now you eat the prasad, you eat an orange so that you can really feel me stronger. Sometimes that is the message. Sometimes they will say, do not eat it, you see. Go give it over here. Go do this with it, you see. So just be in the relation and the curiosity around these funny things that we call altars, and we call gifts, and we call being in honor in these kind of ways that can feel important and not important all at the same time, you see. So this is kind of some pieces here around that frequency of devotion, which can feel a little bit different for different people, depending on your background, how you were raised, what kind of culture you come from, you see, of what that means to be in circuitry. Because for some, it can literally just be a conversation in the heart. For some, it can be writing love letters. For others, it can be bringing oranges and not grapefruits. For some, it can be taking a bath, you see, because they like the water, you see. So it just is really tuning in and getting clarity for yourself in what works for each of these relationships, you see. Because you see, Ava and her husband, they met on a road trip. They fell in love on car trips on the road, you see. They had their first date on the road trip. They had a couple of road trips after that. Then they had their honeymoon on a road trip. And every time they get in the car, they have the download, they have the inspiration, they feel the love, you see. This is their way, you see. This is their way that they like to connect, you see. It's in the car, you see. So it is just a funny thing like that. So every relationship has their little funny thing, you see. And it becomes a sweet thing. It becomes a thing that gets to be a sacred thing because of the circuitry in the heart that is activated from it. It is not the thing itself, you see. It is what comes from it, you see. Is this making sense to you?
Yes, it's not the thing itself. It's what comes from it. It's the frequency and the energy behind it. And I love how you're just sharing about tuning into the unique ways that our guides are asking for offerings, right? In these different ways that are going to be so unique to the guide and so unique to you, right? Possibly putting tea on the altar or water. I put water on my altar often, and I do get that message. Sometimes it's to drink it, and sometimes it's to go pour it in a plant or put it outside. And so really just tuning in to these ways that you can give offerings and send blessings back into these other realms is as your guides are pouring into you, you also get to pour into them. That's part of the circuitry. It's part of the gratitude. It's part of the blessings and how that energy continues to move. And the more that we have gratitude and send blessings, that gets reciprocated back to us as well. And so it allows us to be in this really beautiful, divine relation with our guides, with our higher self, with God, source, universe, and with the entire collective as a whole.
Precisely, my dear. Very well put, you see. And one thing that is coming up here that feels important to mention here is that we are not worshiping anything, you see. We are not in the frequency of worship, you see, because that is saying that something outside of yourself is more important than you see, and that there is a separation between you and another thing, you see. So you're not worshiping your guides, you're not worshiping your altar, you're not worshiping the offerings. Nothing is in the frequency of the worship, you see. So what we are really doing is the frequency of devotion is really an opening of the heart, you see. It's a love frequency that allows us to be in the circuitry, you see. But really, there's nothing to worship, because there's nothing really outside of yourself, honestly, you see. So the frequency of worship is really not quite the right energetic for what we're really communicating here, you see. So when we talk about altars and things like this, some people have that question, you see. So we just want to clarify that we are not necessarily worshiping anything here, but we are really being in honor, which is seeing all of life through the eyes of the divine, seeing life through the eyes of God, as Ava likes to put it, you see, which is very, very well, very poetic, you see. And it's really seeing everything through that way, yourself included, you see. So if you're going to be in worship of one thing, you need to be in worship of all things, you see. You're starting with yourself, you see. And really, it is really to separate it out like that is really missing the point of the holiness of all things, you see. So it's really seeing the oneness in it all, because otherwise you're in a hierarchy with yourself and other, you see. And that is really the incorrect perspective, you see, because just because one is disembodied and one is embodied, you see, there is no hierarchy there. These are old friends. You are old friends with all of these guides here. There's no one more special or less special. Just certain experiences happening in the different planes of existence, you see. Different planes of reality, you see. Just because one is more dense and one is less dense does not mean one is better or worse, you see. So there is no point in going into this frequency of, oh, they are so much higher than me. That is not what is happening, you see. You are choosing to have an experience of density. They are choosing to have experience of less density, you see. It is just different choices of experience. The souls and the fractals all are equal in consciousness, you see, all choosing to have a unique experience, all having a unique soul song, you see, all of equal importance and value, you see. So we do not want to get into the frequency of needing to worship anything, you see, because that is really taking us outside of the truth of who we are, you see, at our essence. And it is dishonoring the spark of creation within ourselves, you see. If we are feeling the need to worship something outside of ourselves, then we are not in honor within the self. Is this making sense to you?
Yes, it makes perfect sense, and such a beautiful reminder that all of the gifts and all of the light and everything that you are yearning for and desire for, everything that you can feel is wanting to be created, it's all exists within you. All of the answers are already within you. And so that's where the deeper self-discovery gets to take place as well, is what is the magic that dwells within the ancient temples that exist within your heart? And can you be in deeper devotion to that? And what guides are showing up to that round table, the one that's in the center of your heart and that is there in the circuitry of love, that can actually access those inner points, because it really is just, as Ava was saying, you in a different expression, as we are all just extensions of creation itself.
Precisely, my dear. And that is very well said, you see. And this is really the reminder that we are really ourselves in all of these different holographic experiences all the time, you see. And this is really, really the point here. And this is also why some of our guides quiet some days, you see. This is the other reason, you see, is because it is the gentle reminder not to always be looking externally or apparently externally, you see, because there is no such thing as really looking externally, because we already solved that mystery, you see. But when we have that perspective that it feels like we are going to our guides to get the answers, you see, which is really just another version of ourselves, you see, but we like to put it in a different face. Perhaps we listen a little bit better, some of us, you see. And so it is different ways, you see, but it is sometimes where the guide's not so loud, not so banging on the door all the time. And it is to remind you that the center of your heart is right with you all the time. You don't have to go anywhere else outside, you see. This is the most important, you see. So it begins the circuitry like that, you see. And so at times it feels like you have all these external guides giving you the guidance. And then over time, the circuitry gets so strong that it's really hard to discern. Is this me? Is this my higher self? Is this my guide? Because it all feels like the same thing, you see. And that is actually what begins to happen. It just becomes this frequency of all knowing, because you are that connected into the circuitry of yourself that you just know, you see, or you just see, or you just hear, or whatever it is, you see. You just are in the knowing, because you are in such deep circuitry with yourself through these quote unquote guides, that the distinction becomes less and less over time, which is also quite fascinating, you see. So it is an interesting play of the polarity, the oneness, the whole story, you see. So it's a little bit like that.
That's such a beautiful point. I feel like that has been my experience as well. Sometimes, it does really just feel like it's all coming in from higher self and from within, and that all of the answers are just being tapped into from the center of my heart. And sometimes I get a distinction of connecting to a guide, and a lot of the time it does feel like it's really just an answer that's being birthed through me is the best way that I can really explain it, and so it's just, it's all such a beautiful like unfolding of deeper self spiritual discovery. And so that's really what we're calling you into in this container, is being in deeper devotion and really entering that sacred temple within you and seeing what is there for you, and what guides are there, and how does this higher intelligence want to move through you and create through your own individual lens, and how we all weave that together here in this human experience. And so thank you so much, Diana, for being here with us. As always, this has been such a powerful and potent episode. I'm just curious if there's any last things that you want to share before we go ahead and close up the podcast today.
Yes, thank you, my dear. We are so blessed to be in your presence, and we love you so dearly, and we love all of you so dearly. And we do want to give a little blessing, you see, but more even so, to just remind you that there is nothing to fear, you see, because your guides are your guides, and they are here with love for you, and that you can trust yourself, you see, because this is really just you reminding yourself that it is safe to trust yourself. You see, so may you be blessed, the blessing from the Pleiadians here, that you remember the truth of who you are, that you are able to shine your light, give your gifts, and be a blessing to all that you come into contact with, all that grace your frequency, that they are blessed to know you and to feel you, and to get to witness your soul song, to get to experience the beauty of who you are, and that you get to experience the beauty of who you are. And that you get to sing your own soul song very loudly and clearly, so that the whole world can hear it, and that you may be connected to the frequency of yourself through the multifaceted reality that sometimes shows up through these things called guides. May you be connected. May you experience the connection that has always been there. Blessings to you, my dear ones, from the Pleiadians.
Beautiful. Welcome back, Ava. That was such a beautiful blessing from Diana. Just giving so much gratitude and so many blessings back to her and the living Ma and all of the spirit guides and beings that were here really serving this container and sharing the information. I have so much gratitude in my heart, and thank you, Ava, for going on this journey with me. We're so grateful for all the listeners that are here. If any of you want to dive deeper and really dive into some of these practices and pieces that we were sharing through both Ava and I and Diana, you can always come check out the online membership. Where Diana comes in, we play a little bit deeper and more intimate in that space as well. So we'll put some information in the show notes. And if there's anything else, Ava, that you want to share before we close up today.
Just thank you all so much. And I just trust that this message was exactly what you needed to hear today.
And if this resonates with you, please like and share this video and subscribe so that we can continue to rise together on this ascension journey.
We'll see you on next week's episode. Bye for now,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.